The two women standing at my front door looked so much like their father that for a moment, I forgot he was dead. They were beautiful twin sisters, almost identical, both holding small overnight bags, and both staring at me with tears in their eyes. Then one of them took a breath and said the words that would change everything I thought I knew about my future. Our dad said you needed a wife. I stared at them in disbelief. My first instinct was to laugh, but the envelope in the woman's hand had my name written across it in the handwriting of my best friend, a man who had been buried only 3 weeks earlier. I opened the door wider, unaware that the greatest secret of my life was waiting inside that envelope. Before we continue, if you believe everyone deserves a second chance, especially after heartbreak and loss, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people who may need to remember that life can change when we least expect it. My name is Daniel, and for 5 years, I had been living in a house that felt more like a museum than a home. My wife, Emma, had died after a long battle with illness. She was 38 when she passed away, and I was 41. We had no children, but we had built a life filled with small things that had once seemed ordinary: Sunday breakfasts, evening walks, arguments over which movie to watch, and coffee together every morning. After she was gone, those ordinary things became painful reminders of everything I had lost. I kept her favorite mug in the kitchen. I never moved the photograph beside our bed. Her scarf remained hanging behind the bedroom door because I couldn't bring myself to put it away. People told me time would heal me, but I eventually realized that time doesn't always heal a broken heart. Sometimes it simply teaches you how to hide the wound. The only person who refused to let me disappear completely was my best friend, Michael. He had known me since college and had loved Emma like a sister. He came to my house almost every weekend, dragged me outside, made me eat proper meals, and complained whenever I spent too much time alone. He often told me that Emma would hate seeing me live like a man who had already died. I always told him the same thing: I wasn't interested in finding someone else. Michael never argued for long. He would simply smile and say that someday I would understand. I never knew that he was preparing for that someday. Michael had 2 daughters, Lily and Laura. They were 24-year-old twins who looked almost identical but had completely different personalities. Lily was calm and thoughtful, while Laura was energetic and fearless. I had watched them grow from teenagers into confident young women, and after Michael's death, I tried to help them whenever I could. 3 weeks after his funeral, they came to my house. When I saw the envelope, my hands began to shake. The letter inside was dated 2 months before Michael's death. He wrote that he knew he was sick, even though he had never told me how serious his condition had become. He wrote about Emma, about my loneliness, and about the way I had slowly stopped living. Then he wrote something that made my eyes fill with tears. He said he wanted his daughters to deliver the letter only when they believed I was ready to hear the truth. Michael had noticed something I had refused to admit. I wasn't staying faithful to Emma by remaining lonely. I was simply afraid. Afraid that loving again would make Emma's memory smaller. Afraid that happiness would feel like betrayal. Afraid that if I opened my heart again, life would find another way to break it. At the bottom of the letter, Michael had written that he had met someone he believed might understand me. Her name was Clara. I immediately shook my head. I told the twins I wasn't ready, and they didn't argue. They simply asked me to meet her once. No promises. No expectations. Just coffee. I agreed because I knew Michael would have teased me relentlessly if I refused. The next Saturday, I met Clara at a small cafe downtown. She wasn't what I expected. She wasn't trying to impress me. She wasn't pretending to understand everything I had been through. She simply sat across from me with a cup of tea and told me that her own life had been changed by loss. Her mother had passed away the previous year, and Clara had spent months caring for her. She told me that after her mother's death, she had also felt guilty whenever she laughed. That sentence broke something open inside me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the only person afraid of happiness. We began talking. Not about romance. Not about marriage. We talked about grief, family, memories, regrets, and all the things people usually hide because they don't want others to see how fragile they really are. When I came home that evening, I stood in front of Emma's photograph for nearly 10 minutes. I whispered that I wasn't forgetting her. I was simply trying to live. That was the beginning. Clara and I slowly became friends. She never pushed me. She never asked me to remove Emma's photographs or change anything in my house. She understood that some memories weren't obstacles, they were pieces of the person I had become. Months passed. I started cooking again. I planted flowers in the backyard because Emma had always wanted a garden. I began taking evening walks. And sometimes Clara walked beside me. One rainy afternoon, Clara found me sitting beneath the porch, staring at the garden. She asked why I looked sad. I told her I was afraid. She asked what I was afraid of. I admitted that I was terrified of losing someone again. Clara sat beside me and quietly held my hand. She didn't promise me that nothing bad would ever happen. She didn't make impossible promises about the future. She simply told me that love had never guaranteed safety. It had only made the journey worth taking. That night, I finally understood what Michael had wanted for me. He hadn't wanted me to replace Emma. He wanted me to stop punishing myself for surviving. A year later, Lily and Laura came back to my house with another envelope. This time, I recognized the handwriting immediately. Michael had left one final letter. He wrote that if I was reading it with Clara beside me, then his plan had worked. He apologized for interfering in my life, then admitted that he had always believed I was too stubborn to save yourself. I laughed through my tears. Then came the final line. He said that Emma had once told him something during one of their conversations. If anything ever happened to her, she wanted me to find happiness again. I had never known she had said those words. For years, I had carried guilt because I thought loving again meant leaving Emma behind. But now I understood the truth. Real love doesn't disappear when someone dies. It becomes part of who we are. And sometimes the greatest way to honor someone we lost is to use the love they gave us to build something beautiful with the life that remains. Clara and I eventually married in a small garden ceremony beneath the trees Emma had once dreamed of planting. Lily and Laura stood beside us, crying and laughing at the same time. After the ceremony, I looked at the two sisters and realized they hadn't simply delivered their father's message. They had delivered me from a life I had mistaken for loyalty. They had reminded me that loneliness isn't the same thing as love, and remembering someone doesn't require you to stop living. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may be struggling with grief or loneliness, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your engagement may help this story reach someone who needs to hear that their life isn't finished just because they have suffered a painful loss. And before the final words, I want you to leave a comment saying, "I believe in second chances." Someone reading your comment may be silently struggling and need those 4 words more than you know. As I stood beside Clara that evening, watching the sunset disappear behind the trees, I finally understood the answer I should have given those two sisters from the beginning. They had said, "Our dad said you needed a wife." I had answered, "He was right, but..." The truth was, I didn't need someone to erase my past. I needed someone who would help me believe I was still allowed to have a future.